FOG number 71 is Steve Renouf. Known as the Pearl, Steve is one of the most exciting players to have played the game. Renouf was a member of 4 Brisbane Broncos premiership winning sides and has the distinction of scoring 4 tries in a match for the Broncos on 5 occasions. Steve played 183 games for Brisbane, scoring 142 tries, the most for the club. In all, Steve Renouf played 11 Origin matches for Queensland and 10 tests for Australia and was named in the Australian Indigenous Team of the Century. Steve, thanks for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
To be a FOG, I think it's unique and honoured for me to be one. Watching it on TV growing up, in the 80s, obviously it started in 1980, and growing up, for the next 7 years watching, or whatever it was, 10 years watching Origin, and then to actually get picked in an Origin team, it's goosebumps. It's just one of those things, and you think back and you go, well, geez, as a kid, you think, oh, one day maybe, but and it happened. It's a special thing.
How does a boy from Mergen end up being a FOG then? Tell us the journey.
I always think back because we didn't have managers per se coming out of high school. I was fortunate enough though, if you looked at the events, I played Queensland under 16s with Andrew G, guys like Andrew G and Craig Teven. So unbeknownst to me, the selectors for that under 16 team were the selectors for Origin. So you sort of go, you're in their sights from a young age, and we didn't know that at the time. And then we went forward and made Queensland open schoolboys and all that. And then fortunate enough for us, the three of us I just mentioned, the Broncos formed in 1988. We graduated in 1987. So we got signed with the Broncos, and then we sort of made our way still through. We made the Queensland 18s, and obviously you're still in the sights of those selectors. And I think most of them were when I made my debut. In 91, I think they were still the selectors. So you're always in their sights, but never had it, apart from Wayne or someone pushing you, because we didn't have managers. I think it was just the way that worked back in the day.
How big a transition was it for a young bloke from Mergen to head to Brisbane?
Oh, huge. I just the training. I mean, history knows that I wasn't a great trainer, and but it was just that level up. I used to go to training back home, just play a game of touch, and that was it, and then go play the game. And I think the level stepping up into that, but then we had the old reserve grade back in the day, so I did my time through there. But even between reserve grade in the ARL and going to first grade, just training was a lot more intense in training for the Broncos. And so I found that, there's something you had to adjust to, but as soon as you got out there and settled in with the team, you find your way.
Were there ever any doubts that you could handle city life, and were you always comfortable living in Brisbane and playing with the Broncos?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. I had family here. I had 2 of my older sisters down here. So I moved in with one of them, and then I think then we moved in together. We got a flat together. So I got to credit them. They looked after me. But mind you, I got engaged pretty early. It was only, I reckon, 18 months after I came down. My girlfriend came down, then we married, and so we were together. So I was very lucky. I had people around me. But yeah, coming and just adjusting to the life. I mean, I also started my trade as well in '88. And I'd be bussing across the city. So that was always interesting, catching a few buses around just to get the train and get home again.
1989, you made your debut for the Broncos, so you're still a teenager. What was that like?
Yeah, it was for a start, just to be selected. That was massive. I still remember our training session, and Wally Lewis was, so good to me. I couldn't believe, that the King was giving me advice. I'm out there on the wing at training, and it was just, they made me feel really welcome. But it was really nervous, and we had to go down to Campbelltown and play down there, and so I started on the wing outside of Chris Johns, and I remember the day was a bit. It was the old field at Campbelltown. Had been raining. It was a bit soggy, and we got away with that one.
So then you're in first grade for a couple of years, finding your feet and establishing yourself, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in front of those selectors' eyes again for Origin. Take us back to that time in 91 when you made your debut.
Yeah, it's funny enough. We used to find out, I think it was maybe ABC Radio, they'd announce it on the radio. So I knew I was a bit, and I was at TAFE at the time, at Yeronga TAFE. So I was doing my block there, and I remember driving home in my little Gemini, and I put the radio on because I'll just anyway. We all listened to the Origin team anyway when it was announced to see who made it from the Broncos or whatever, and I got picked on the bench, and I couldn't believe it, So it was very special, to have that happen, and I wasn't expecting it, but then you hear your name on the radio, being selected in your first Origin team.
When you walked into the camp for the first time, what was that like?
It was quite daunting actually. I remember Tosser Turner and running in the toss and just the way they did things, and I couldn't believe it. You get in all this gear, all this Origin gear. It was for a young bloke. It was awe-inspiring. It was special. You ask any player, I still think to this day, if you get picked for your first Origin, you go into camp and you're just waiting, because you're seeing all your idols, and my idol was Mal Meninga, and for me that was very special.
Did you doubt whether you deserved to be there? Were there nerves or any doubts at all?
Yeah, I don't think there were any doubts. I mean, I was playing some good rugby league, and that's the thing, and I think you just go on, and Origin, you do get picked on form, I think, and I just happened to be playing some good footy, and there might have been an injury. I think Dale Shearer could have been injured. I might have replaced him, but they're the opportunities that you got to take when you get given them, and I was fortunate enough to get given that opportunity in 91.
What was the game like, the experience?
Yeah, I was. I only had 20 minutes or so off the bench. As I said, I come off the bench onto the wing, and it was fast. That's one thing I do remember. And even on the wing, I was like, it's like had got a few runs, up in the belt, and but yeah, it was just. I think going back, the big thing I remember is when walking on behind Wally Lewis and your idols onto Lang Park for the first time, and the crowd just amazing. Just that the crowd cheering when the king walks out, just belch in the chest. It was awesome.
Looking back now, of course, Wally retired at the end of 1991. Is that one of your treasured memories of being able to play an Origin match at Lang Park with Wally Lewis as your captain?
Yeah, it's so special. Like growing up watching Wally, the king, and then also playing, walking out with Mal Meninga, who was my idol growing up. Those two, but it was just one of those moments that you treasure, and that's probably my favourite Origin moment, is walking on the Lang Park with those two ahead of you. It was amazing.
Well, the next few years were quite eventful as well, with premierships with the Broncos and representing your country. Was it a bit of a whirlwind, say that 4 or 5 year period where Brisbane was winning everything, World Club Challenge included, and you're representing Australia in a World Cup?
Never to be repeated, only through the fact that even though you could argue we did that in 98 with the Broncos and at every level, but 92, because it was the first for everything, it was pretty special. And I remember winning the 92 grand final, and you remember the crowds and what we flew back into that night from the airport, and the airport drive and into the city and over the Broncos. There were people, it was amazing. And then to go and get selected in, I think it was about 6 of us in the 92 World Cup squad, to go to Wembley a few weeks later, only 3 weeks after the grand final win, and then score a try in that match and we win. It was just amazing. And then the Broncos came over and we won the World Club Challenge. So we won everything that was in front of us within, a couple of months at the end of the year, and you can't top that. For us, and a lot of the boys will say that was a very special year because we won everything that was offered up to us.
Why do you think, what was the chemistry? What is there anything about that time that makes it different from many others that you look back and say, well, these were the keys to why we were so successful?
and this is basic. This is going to be basic footy stuff. But we obviously had arguably the best coach ever, Wayne Bennett, and we had a lot of respect for what Wayne was telling us and taught us. So that was built up prior to '92, obviously. That's the way things work, and but we had confidence and we trusted each other, and that was a big thing. So we were allowed to play what was in front of us, but we always knew we had a game plan to come back to, and Wayne really let us do that. Like Alan Langham, Kevy Wallace, I mean, come on, they just play what's in front of them most of the time. So I think we just ran off the back of that. Wayne was so good one-on-one, so he kept you up. At times, but we didn't have a bad year. I think we only lost 4 games in '92, and we won the minor premiership, and look, we had an arrogance. The arrogance was that we were confident. We went out there knowing that we could beat every team, and we really believed that. And when we lost those 4 games, we just said, well, we beat ourselves. But we knew coming into the finals that we knew what we were going to do. Funny.
Well, how would you like to be the owner of one of these? A FOGS authentic game ball signed by Wally Lewis at the 2023 Wally Lewis medalist Reuben Cotter. Now, all you have to do is subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. And each week, gentlemen, we'll be giving away one of these footballs to one of the viewers of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. Well done.
Well, it's good to be able to hand them on to the general public who like it, as long as we don't get blamed for breaking one of Mum's windows when they're kicking it around the backyard or tossing it around.
But this will be framed in a nice
Reuben Cotter's name. Wow.
Do you know how to subscribe and like and do all that, Gilly? No?
Oh. We can help you, mate. We can help you.
Help me out, fellas.
The 2 daughters can help you out.
So we have one of these to give away each week until stocks run out, until Wally gets sick and tired of signing them and Reuben Cotter disappears. But just subscribe to our channel, FOGS Queenslander Podcast. Write a comment below and click that like button. Everyone goes into the draw, and we've got one of these to give away each week. What's it like having a moment in your career, an iconic grand final moment, the try you scored against the Dragons, spoken about to this day and will forever live in grand final history as one of the great tries. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it was special, obviously being in the first one, but I say to people, my mum was in the crowd. My dad had passed earlier in '92, so it was pretty special. But I think what people, I talk about it a bit, that was our bread and butter during the year. So we did that, and I didn't always score a try, or Johnsy didn't always, or the wingers. We always attacked out of our own quarter. If we saw something, that's what we were allowed to do. Let's get it wide and see how we go, And the worst thing for us was making an extra 20 metres so the forwards didn't have to do the work. But that day, the way things panned out, I think I stepped Rexy Turpin. I always apologise to Rexy, about that. And unfortunately, or not fortunately for us, I think the fullback might have been just out of position a bit. So I got a fairly clear run to the line, and obviously Ricky, got close. But it was just one of those things. I hadn't done much during that game either, and as Ray Warren always says. But it was just one of those moments. But I say to people, we were doing that all year.
Where'd the headgear come from? When did you start wearing that, and why?
Yeah, I started wearing that, I think it was about 14 or 15. I got knocked out in a local game and got put in hospital, so it was a fair concussion. And my mum just put the ultimatum to me. And, I think Dad said, look, Mum's not going to let you play unless you wear a headgear. I was like, okay. So you can imagine this is up in Mergen, and I didn't even know headgear existed, to be honest. But so I started wearing it when I was 14 or 15, and I just kept wearing it, and then on and off during my junior. But when I got down to Brizzy, I had one, and I wore it my whole footy career at the Broncos.
A couple of years with Wigan at the back end of your career as well. What was that like?
Yeah, it was great. It was good to get away. We just come out of the Super League mayhem. So for me and my ex-wife and my family, it was just like, let's... And I always wanted to go to England, but I wanted to go over there still playing good footy. So I went over, and we got out of here for a couple of years, and it was just it was great. They're a super club. There's some really good blokes there, and I think Frankie Endicott was our first coach there. So I had a good time actually in the 2 years we were there. And my last son Freddie, he was born over there, and it was just it was a special time. It was good.
Looking back on the Origin career, is apart from that first game walking out with the King and Mal, was there any moments that stood out for you?
Well, that's obviously the big one, and I think just to win I didn't really win a series. I think I was only part of the 91, and then I think finishing off in 98, we won that series in Origin. Coached by Wayne Bennett and captained by Alan Langer. That was a little bit special to me because we had a lot of Bronco players in that team as well. And we got a bit criticised through that mid-90s because we didn't win series, and we wore the brunt of that because we had a lot of Broncos in that team, so we wore it at every level. But then to do it in 98, and that was going to be my last representative year, that's pretty special to do that under your coach, Wayne Bennett, and Captain Alan Langer.
Who was your favourite player to play with?
I have to be Alf, and obviously I always say Alf, yes, but I had a special bond with Kevy Walters, obviously, but you put them, they go hand in hand anyway. So, but yeah, me and Kevy had a special bond in what we did, but to be captain and watch Alf and to do what he did back in the day was just amazing. And you don't get to see all those highlights we got to see game to game of Alf, but yeah, he was a special player.
What about off the field? We speak about the enjoyment of great moments on the field. Are there times off the field through rugby league that mean a lot to you?
Off the field, it was just, I just think you look at the opportunity that rugby league gave you. You talk about that 92 and you all of a sudden your profile just goes bush, through the roof, for me anyway. What happened there. So I've gone to this relatively unknown person to next one, but it's a way you handle that. And we were taught, obviously, by Wayne, you do it with humility. And I think most of the boys during that era were like that. So, and it's just, so a lot of things I do today are because I played rugby league. So I think that's a good thing.
Is there a game in particular in your career, and I know this is not necessarily an easy question to answer, that stands out that you may, if you had the chance to play again?
Definitely a game. It was. I'm pretty sure it was a 92 season. We go down to Canterbury, down to Belmore, and we're playing against them, and I reckon I single-handedly lost that game. And I thought, we go back to the airport, and Darren Smith had a heyday. He had the best game against us. I thought maybe I might have been back in reserve grade the next week. But as Wayne does, he come over to me at the airport, and I was sitting there by myself because I was doom and gloom. It was all bad. And he's come over and put his hand on me. He goes, you know what, Steve? And I said, yeah, what? And he goes, you'll win more games than you'll lose for us, because he knew I'd lost that game. So he says, so don't worry about it. And I was like, oh. So it sort of lifted that little bit of burden I had straight after the game, and I thought, well, he's got my back.
Which opponent gave you the greatest or the biggest challenge?
I'd have to say, obviously early Mal, but Mal, he was big, but you knew Mal ran straight. That was not a bad thing for us because we'd all jump on his back. But I think Paul McGregor, he was 6 foot whatever. He was I had some big centres and I wasn't the biggest centre, but he was big and strong, but had a good step on him. So that made it even harder for me. So Paul McGregor, I must admit, he was a pretty special player.
Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Wayne Bennett, obviously. I say that very confidently. I mean, he without him and the understanding, like he said to me, like with training, he said, look, I know you're never going to win anything at training, so don't worry about that. You turn up early, you finish everything. He said, we just worry about game day. virtually. And so we had that understanding, and he was good to me, and he was always true to his word with me. You know, when I had my jaw broken in '93, he wanted to know the story. He said, you know, I had to sit out for a couple of the prelims and whatever, and he said, but I'll put you back in, and he did.
What about advice? What's some of the best advice you've been given, or advice you would give to young blokes coming through or young girls coming through now?
Yeah, just enjoy the footy, enjoy the atmosphere, and I think we had that. So we wanted to go, you know, it wasn't full time at the start of our career, but then obviously from '93, '94 onwards, it became full time. But we enjoyed rocking up to Red Hill for training, and we couldn't wait to get there because we wanted to be together, and we had this unit. So, but Wayne would always say, enjoy it, because it's not there for long. Your career, you look back, goes pretty quick. Even though, you know, I might have played 12 seasons, it goes pretty quick, and you sort of look back and you go, I enjoyed every minute of it.
Okay, looking back, how do you encapsulate your career? A young bloke from Mergen arriving in Brisbane as a teenager, you sit here now looking back on those, you know, 11 Origin matches, all the Test matches, the premierships. What are your thoughts?
I was blessed. You know, it was just one of those things. I you know, right place, right time, and it was just one of those things. You know, I talked about it before. Graduated in '87, and Broncos started in '88. It was just like, not that I'm not into it was destined, but it was just one of those things. You know, you still had to work hard, but it was right there for me to take. It was up to me to make sure that I took that opportunity.
Thanks for your time, Steve.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander Podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.